So I'm calling our ad hoc to order at 7:55. We're looking today, we're going to be skipping doing any voting on minutes as we'll wait until we have a quorum. But today we're just going to be looking at proposals. Let me know if you can see my screen when I get to it because I am not used to Teams. Sorry, my computer is giving me needs an administrator's password to share my screen. Let me see if this works. It does not. So Chloe, can I have you share the um, alternative minimum content assessment version 4?
Sure, let me just pull it up from my email.
Chloe, I have it up if you want me to try to share it.
That'd be great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jen. So since we last talked, things that I added into this document, under background, I did add a note from Ajit, and that's from, it's from the content area licensure assessment PDF that was shared. Essentially with that, under background from Ajit, he had gone over like the number of candidates that were not passing the praxis to. That PDF document is actually really helpful because it went through each of the main tests. It went through the results for candidates of color, white candidates, people who did not report. It also went through the different EPPs and their best attempt pass rates and the 5-year trend for best pass rates in a number of exams, and it's listed by exam. So it has the foundations of reading, Pearson early childhood, Praxis 2 elementary. It has the biology, English, it lists it by tests. So that might be really helpful to go back and look into, just because that has a lot of data of how many people this would affect. Jen, if you could scroll down to, can you scroll down to page 5 for a second? Yes. I did add, based on some of our discussions in previous meetings, I had originally put in my proposal to say achieve a score within 2 standard error measurements, but then with further discussion, the data from Ajit in that content area PDF, and then the data from ETS, which is in that same email. It's like the showing how many people were affected by the bridge program. Each standard error measurement is about 5% of test takers. So the bridge program helps 5% of test takers, get past Praxis 2. So the 3 standard error measurements, I made that adjustment because 2 standard error measurements would, if it's linear, affect about 10% of candidates. So we had put in originally 2, and I modified that to 3 as a proposal so that it would help a larger portion of candidates without having it be no bar for content knowledge. And then Rebecca, you had suggested like, why would that waiver need to come back to our board? Like what could a person do that would make us say yes or no based on the rest of their qualifications. So from that proposal, I had removed the whole, submit this evidence and then bring it to our board for final approval. So then I'd added instead the SDE will consider the minimum content knowledge fulfilled and further testing will be waived after they do their 2 years of successful teaching. All right, and then Rebecca's proposal, if you scroll all the way down to number 6. All right. So do you want to talk to yours? Yes.
Yeah, so this is Catherine, I was just trying to bring together multiple elements of the other 5 proposals. And I also just in transparency, I'm trying to like ensure that EPPs have like they have an approved waiver, because we as like EPP leaders know what that student may need to further develop in demonstrating minimum content knowledge. So group 1, like, I mean, first off, everybody takes the state approved content knowledge exam. I think that there's a conversation in the future, near future, about what a state exam and which state exams and all of that, but that's not for this ad hoc. Right now, all candidates who want to be teachers in Connecticut and are doing Connecticut EPP pathways will take the current state approved content knowledge exams. Group 1, candidates who pass the exams, they've fulfilled the minimum content knowledge expectation. You're done. That's the majority of candidates. Group 2, candidates who do not pass one or more of the exams but come within range to be eligible for the Practice 2 bridge. And then to me, I would go with what you had just said about the 3 SEMs, because I think that makes a lot of sense. That will then fulfill their minimum content knowledge expectation for whatever exams they may have come within range. Now, group 3, if you do not pass one or more and you do not come within range, then you would be eligible for 2 waiver options. Waiver option 1, EPP approved waiver. Waiver option 2 would be district approved waiver. And I have this option because I was trying to think about the people, Catherine, I was thinking about the students who've like program complete. They have been like out in the world for a while. They've like we're not tracking them 2-3 years. They're not a student. Not that we're not like tracking them, because we do keep data. But then, so I was thinking that there's a district approved waiver. And so students would choose between an EPP approved waiver, a district approved waiver. That waiver is submitted directly to SDE and no further review is needed. It's not being submitted to SDE to say, yes, we accept or no, we don't. It is accepted if it's coming from the EPP, as any of our attestations are accepted. It is coming, or it's coming from the district, as though a district has signed off on the document saying, yes, we want this person. And then that waiver is what meets the fulfillment of minimum content knowledge.
Yeah. So I think for waiver 2, where you and I differ, is because we're both getting at the same thing in the same group of people. We're getting at the people who have no connection with their EPP anymore. They're already graduated. They're already working. And I think the only difference between ours is that yours would be for 10 months / 1 year. My proposal is for 2 years. So what are you thinking about why 1 year instead of 2?
Well, I think about the apprenticeship program that we now have. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, if the apprenticeship is you don't, like, once you complete the 10 months or the 1 year as an apprentice, that is you don't need to then do your praxis too, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. You know what, Rebecca? This is what we have: an apprenticeship. We're piloting the apprenticeship, we are now considered a registered apprenticeship.
Right.
And that is not how it actually rolls out. My students have to complete, and I think it's nomenclature. My students need to complete all the traditional content mastery exams, foundations of reading, praxis 2, and then they have, and basically they go into a year-long, it's supposed to be quote unquote medical model. I don't like that phrase, but it is a medical model where they do 2 days in the fall and they're doing the full time student teaching. The way I see this differentiating is that they are getting a stipend for student teaching. At this point, there is no, in our registered apprenticeship with the workforce development, there is no distinction. Now, I cannot speak to a registered residency, like the residency model, which that is different. I don't have a residency model. I don't have any specifics about that, and I'm wondering if we're, because there the apprenticeship and model and residency are being used interchangeably, and
Yep.
I'm wondering if that's where the distinction is.
Yeah, and for both an apprenticeship and a residency, it is a 10-month, it's a 1 academic year experience. It's not
Correct.
2.
Correct.
So therefore, that's goes back to you, Kristen, about the option 2, about matching it up with what we do in a residency model, which I'm most familiar with, and then an apprenticeship model. That's interesting though, Catherine. I just want to take a side note about the requirement of the test taking, because in legislation that is like not what it's supposed to be. So I want to check on that. That's
Right. We need to
interesting.
unpack that a little bit so that the language reflects exactly what it is. And that the way that because quite honestly, we're getting enrolled in, we are launching the apprenticeship right now. And we've already signed the affiliation agreement with the 2 districts. There's no conversation that we've had about altering the content mastery. But when we do get to that point, I'd like to discuss both of these options.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that those are both 10 months, and that 10 months is in addition to student teaching.
No,
No,
it's not.
that is the student teaching experience that you
That
are
is the student
in.
teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's where I think I have a difference, because if that 10 months, 1 year is student teaching, the waiver that I'm proposing is for people who are already done with student teaching. So there's no need to have them match. For the person who's already completed student teaching but can't pass their content mastery, if they're already working and have worked for 2 years, I think that having, the district say, this is a teacher that knows their content as the waiver, I think that would be sufficient. But I don't see the need to have them necessarily match, because if those 2, apprenticeship and residency, are both the student teaching experience, then this would be something beyond student teaching.
Okay, so I have a question, right? I think that this is a really useful conversation, because it kind of opens up some pieces that we need to kind of fill, right? First of all, who's going to track them post graduation? And I know that CSDE may not have the capacity to add this onto their plate, especially as things are going to be funneling down, they're going to have more responsibility. But that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is, so let's just leave that piece there, right? I'm just, if we move towards, a 2-year model, and they have to work for 2 or 3 years, how are they going to work for 2 or 3 years without certification? I can tell you that's the crux right here that I think that we're trying to figure out. They cannot work without certification.
Well, they could work as a DSAP for 3 years, potentially 4.
Okay, so I want to go back to what Rebecca said a long time ago. We don't know what the DSAP rules are going to be yet, because we haven't gotten there yet, right? So, I mean, and I will tell you, the DSAP is tricky. There's certain parameters that they need in place. They have to be a full year, and it has to be a shortage area for the district. All right. So let's say they go to Norwalk, they go to Bridgeport, they go to West Haven, they're going to be able to get a DSAP perhaps in that shortage area. But they go to a more suburban area or a more affluent area, it's not as easy to get a DSAP. I can tell you that it's difficult to get a DSAP right here in Danbury. And Danbury is the biggest city in Connecticut right now with the most languages, and it's all Title One. It's been all Title One. And I cannot get my students to get DSAPs. So I hear what you're saying, but an interesting option, and I'm not sure that I know much about it, was something we talked about, which was an internship, right? Where students, New York does the same thing. So I'm not recreating anything, but there was something that we talked about where students can go to CSDE for an internship. And I would argue that if they're in a graduate program being supported by an EPP, then maybe they can work under an internship certificate while they cultivate their skills. And that is something that would facilitate those 2 or 3 years. I don't think we could rely on the DSAP because they're not reliable.
Well, I mean, I think that whatever the interim, temporary, like, sure, like whatever the teaching certificate is during this interim time, the question is one academic year enough, like, for if the student said, I want to do a district approved waiver, then having one academic year and the district then makes the decision like, yes, I felt like that was enough. And if the district says no, then the candidate does not get the waiver.
Right. And actually, that's good thinking, because also, let's say you get to the end of your year, your district says no, right? Or maybe it wasn't a good fit with the district. Maybe it was, maybe your subject is no longer on the shortage area list for the state, or, maybe you get riffed, something along those lines.
Right.
So what happens
then the candidate could go to their EPP and say, oh, I would like to I would like to do an EPP approved waiver. I'm really into having some level of choice. And so, and then
Or
then
they
the
could
EPP
just go back
decides.
or they could be like, you know what, I got within 3 SEMs.
I want to retest. I want to take the test
I'll just
again.
retest.
Yeah.
Especially if it was in the document from Ajit, they were saying, they had a suggestion to waive the fees for retakes. So you pay the fee for the praxis once or whatever, and then all the retakes would be free. I don't know if that went through or that went anywhere, or if that was just an idea in that PDF, but having the fee barrier gone would be really helpful, because then if a candidate is close, you're close,
Yeah, so right now, and ETS is a company and their purpose is making money, not, helping develop a teacher workforce, right? So, I mean, obviously at some point they're going to want to make money. And I think we have to unpack that SEM. I mean, I'm not quite sure why we have a cut score and why we have an SEM. SEM indicates that there's some error of measure within the assessment, right?
I know.
Like,
That cracks me up every time, Catherine.
If there's an error within the assessment, that needs to be that needs to be somehow addressed. And maybe,
well, I mean, for any assessment, there's errors within an assessment. So every every test has an SEM, whether we go through and do the validity and precision and accuracy or not. Um, Even like the tests that we use for classroom assessments, right? Um, it's just that with their testing size, a company like ETS, they're invested in looking at that data. Would it make sense instead to say within 15% of the cut score, so that it's like a,
I don't
a
know, then what?
reasonable set number that's um, always the same? Because what if you have a test with a really low SEM, then you know a student might
Yeah.
be at 10% within the cut score, but not within 3 SEMs.
I hear you. This is why Rebecca's vision board is a vision board is
It
really
is kind
helpful
of like a vision
because
board meeting. I like that,
yeah,
Catherine.
yeah, yeah. So because we're looking at what we're doing is we're reacting to everything that's already there, right?
Yeah.
Who said we have to have a cut score? Like look
Yeah.
at the SAT. The SAT is, basically you're comparing your score in relation to all these other scores. Like why
I
can't we
think
just look at
though,
this?
for a minimum content knowledge, a cut score does make sense because we're saying you know at least this much biology. And if you need to go learn to teach AP biology after, at least you have this like minimum knowledge of cells and mitochondria and all that good
I
stuff.
don't know. That's kind of, and I'm really gonna just go. But yeah, we're saying that we're gonna have to have a minimum content knowledge, but 15% of the test has an error of measure. So those students, I don't, something we have to change. I'm not, I don't want to be difficult. I just think that we need to think about this differently. That's all. I just kind of threw it out there. But Jen has her hand up. I
Oh,
mean,
I see, I see.
Sorry, I just had a question just as like a listener. And when we're talking about kind of removing barriers for our candidates to certification, with the EPP approved waiver, it says extra course or support. Would that cost be waived because it would be above and beyond their coursework that they had already kind of got their bachelor's in to support them? Kind of like waiving the certification fees is something that we're talking about. Just kind of thinking out there that if I'm finishing my coursework and I don't pass, but one of my options is to take more coursework at a cost, I might be less likely to do the more coursework option, right?
Right. I think that would be determined by the EPPs.
yeah,
Like at Relay, I might say no. We have courses like that students pay for to we have to get additional like content knowledge development. We also then have one-on-one tutoring that they don't pay for that. So I think that is EPP dependent.
yeah, I don't know how that's going to look. I don't know how that's going to work at an EPP level. It's expensive. Financial aid may be going away. I this just I think that the EPP has to answer to. We're already kind of doing this work for CAPE. We're doing that to make sure that we are supporting students, and we have these transition points. And I don't know that that's anything other than what we're doing. We cannot right now. Of course, we're changing things, but we cannot submit a waiver. We can only we approve them for certification, or we don't approve them. If you're saying that we approve them with conditions, my condition would be that they, that's just my thought on how you can get around that. And the condition would be what? I don't know. They're already at the end of their program, right? So they're at the end of their program. They've completed all their coursework. So we're trying to reel it in and have students take the assessment along with their coursework, right? And theoretically, it's a beautiful way to do it. However, students don't always, they have free will and they don't necessarily abide by that schedule that we give them. So, at the end of their 4 years, they're scurrying to get everything done. Now they're in student teaching. Now they're about to graduate. So I like the bridge. I think that's a great option. I'm not sure that I'm not loving the 3 SEM idea. I think that we need to look at that, but that's just my opinion. And I personally think that we can give them a waiver. The district approved waiver, I'm not sure how that differs from what they're already doing in student teaching, quite honestly.
It would be beyond student teaching. So after they're done with the EPP and student teaching, but fail to pass the exam. So it would be for people who've already graduated from their EPP. And I think
Yes.
that's true for both Rebecca and my proposals that are. And I think I kind of want to go back to that discussion. So, because I think Rebecca and I are like, our ideas are so similar, and we can like find common ground and make them into one beautiful idea. And
Okay, so just let me just ask you a question. How does this differ than what CSDE is doing now with this internship where you can go to them with and we just heard about this at the big board meeting, where you can go to them with a bachelor's degree and they will grant you an internship certificate without the content mastery.
do
It
you
seemed to
mean
be
the waiver that goes through the state board?
right. What that was something that was presented to us that is already out there.
It is,
And
but
I'm
the problem
wondering,
with
like,
that one is much more time intensive for SDE. So that one, SDE collects all the information about the student's EPP, their student teaching, their test scores. And it's not just for a test waiver. It's might be waiving student teaching, it might be waiving certain courses. But then the SDE puts that all together in a portfolio and presents it to the State Board of Education that has to, during one of their regular public meetings, discuss this individual's um, credentials essentially and go through and approve it one by one. So that's much more, it's much more individualized and broader in scope than just the minimum content knowledge. So both of our ideas are just about minimum content knowledge for people who have met, already graduated their EPP, scored within a certain percentage of the test, and does the 10 months of service in addition would bring them up to pass that content knowledge.
right.
So
And
it doesn't go
I-
through any boards. It doesn't
all
require
right.
as much work for SDE.
Thanks for unpacking that for me. I really appreciate that. It's not, I'm going to go back to, I'm not being difficult. I'm letting you know that
Yeah.
my students cannot find work as certified teachers. They are being paraprofessionals and they're not making a livable wage because they can't pass the content mastery exam, right? So they're not going to be able to work full time. So then that would mean we'd have to have a complete, and this is back to the vision board, we'd have to have a completely different role or something where, you call it something different,
Well,
right? Where they,
and for those students though, that's where the EPP approved waiver comes in. Like, if I were to think, what percentage of the students finish their entire program, their student teaching and everything, Catherine, and the one thing that's holding them back from getting their license is the content exam. Let's say if that's like 10% of your students, then 10% of them may be seeking an approved waiver, an EPP approved waiver. Now, each EPP can decide how they want to like attest to, yes, we are actually approving the student. We like to move forward. And then with that waiver, that student could then get the license to be able to access that job.
And I feel like, one of the things that I see in my other job is that we actually do have a good number of incoming staff that are under DSAP, even in districts that are suburban. Like
It's
I know that we were talking about a coworker that Jen has, we know of plenty of people that are working under a DSAP where this is their thing preventing them from becoming fully getting their initial certification,
right. And I'm on the other end. I have students that I am desperately trying to get into DSAPs so they don't have to do 70 days of unpaid student teaching. It's
Right.
not easy to get a DSAP. And it's not easy to get a DSAP that they don't need to travel to. Okay, it would benefit the EPP to have a teacher in the classroom and to graduate them. I don't think that I hear what you're saying, but let me unpack this a little bit. And what about the EPP? The EPP says these are the criteria that they've met, right? Our role is to make a recommendation for certification. And
Right.
this is all the information. It's the student's responsibility to file for the certification. All the EPP does is provide the information that we've collected on the student, right? If the candidate completes a form similar to the 170A, which is a form we can recommend they complete a different form, and that might be for this alternate track. And then so that they'd be able to work as a teacher on record. But you got to get your union involved in that. Like, how do you have somebody who doesn't have the certification requirements? I guess you guys are the union people. Never mind. So you have your union. Like, well, this person passed their content mastery, but then are they going to make less money because they didn't? I don't know. Like, that's that's not even in my realm. But like, maybe the EPP does its job and makes the recommendation, or all we do is make the recommendation or not. And I think that what Rebecca's saying is now the EPP, instead of making the recommendation, says these are the criteria that they've met, and they've met the criteria for A, certification, B, an alternate route to certification. Let's just say, like, just to be clear. Yeah. And then
I have a lot of questions on waiver 1. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Your sound was coming in. Okay. Did you want to finish your thought? I'm sorry.
I will have to go off the call in about 2 minutes, just a heads up.
Thanks, Jen.
I'll stop in the interest of time. I just think that it's not going to be as easy to get a waiver. I think that we can make a recommendation differently.
Well, that's why option 1 says submits a waiver as part of the recommendation for certification of the state. So, I mean, it could say the EPP, it's like the EPP is saying, as we've recommended to the state. Now there could be 2 paths. If this student does not pass the Praxis 2, the state approved exam, like, we check this box to say, like, we are still recommending this student. Or, because that to me is a little dicey, or there's a basic recommendation, and then in the event that the student, depending on when they took their exams, didn't, like, the student comes back to the EPP, students are always coming back to their EPP, to the cert officers, like, asking for X, Y, and Z. They say, oh, I was unable to pass Praxis. I would like to get an additional recommendation to waive my content knowledge, my minimum content knowledge. Now the EPP can say, all right, well, to do that, you need to do X, Y, Z. Like, but that's up to the EPP.
And that's
and I think that's why I have so many.
Hold on, go ahead, Catherine. I just want to hear, because like, I know from an EPP standpoint, you've got.
Right. I think that, if we're trying to remove barriers, my students I'm just thinking of, like, my one girl who, she just can't do it, right? She can't pass it. She's not going to be able to afford to come back and take coursework, right? And the EPP is not going to do it for free, especially with the fiscal issues that are going on in higher education. So I believe that this lives in the state. It doesn't live at the EPP. But I do think, to your point, Rebecca, that we could say they've met all of their responsibilities, and then that's it. And then the state and the student then has to file a different, instead of the 170A, they file a 170B, which would be maybe a option 2, where they can work as a teacher for 10 months, then
Exactly.
have this district type of, right? But I don't believe that there's no waiver from the EPP side. We need to do our job, and it's either they did this certification or they did not. But we need to, but it's very clear what they've done, right? When you look at the 170A, it's not a matter, we have all the tests. So now we need to kind of unpack that 170A, because all the certification officers doing, they did this, 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 and this. So, and those
So I
things,
think that would be a choice, right? Like you're saying, like that one student, like is not going to come back and is not going to pay, and like is not like, and you're like, and that's okay. That's why you have option 2. That student doesn't have to do that option. They can go and they can say, nope, I'm going to do option 2. I'm like, I'm going to do this 10 months. My district's going to do it. Great. Like, other students might choose and prefer to come back to the EPP and do with the EPP waiver. Like if the EPP has an option, I don't think that's why there's a choice.
We're already doing that though. Like we're doing that internally. I don't want that to be legislated, because we do that internally. We do not let students move forward, and we do hold them back and recommend that they continue coursework before they graduate. So if they graduate, once they've graduated, they're out, and then that's it. So I don't necessarily agree. I agree with the I agree with the certification piece, and I agree with them having an alternate route post graduation. But imposing legislatively anything on the EPPs, and then that's going to conflict with their,
So I think the nice thing about the language we put forward to the legislation the education committee, was that, it listed the minimum content knowledge as what our board decides through regulations. So it would not actually be
We're not putting
directly
this in legislation.
legislated,
Yeah.
right? So
We've
it wouldn't
pulled
be
that
something
out.
that, yeah. And I think that solution, having it be based on what our board decides, that we can revisit it regularly and we can think about how, each of these options as they roll out has actually improved or changed our workforce. Like, I think having that flexibility within the legislation, saying it's what our board has decided, I think that's going to be really helpful, so that if we do something like a test run of waiver 2 or a test run of waiver 1, we can see, how that has sort of changed the candidates that have entered the workforce and whether or not they stay as teachers.
Yes, but you're shifting the decision about certification onto the EPP. I just think that the EPP, I just think we need to revision what it is that the EPP is doing. I think that the EPP we cannot give a waiver. We can recommend the student move into a 10-month track. Like, I think that might be, it's the language I'm stuck on, and I don't want anything to be legislated that's gonna put the EPPs in a situation that they're not. Like, I don't want it to be legislated that any EPP says to a student, you have to come back to us and you have to take
No,
courses.
yeah. This
right?
is not
Like,
this is not in legislation. This is not any type of even the waivers right now. Like that's like we have taken that piece out. Like this would yes, this is not this would not be in legislation. And right now the waiver, to get a waiver for your minimum content knowledge goes through this complex, kind of confusing not very
Multi-step.
transparent process through SD. And we're saying, and I'm saying, I think the people who are best positioned to determine if a student does not need to continue to take the Praxis 2 is the EPP or the district. And so calling it a waiver, we could be like, okay, it's not a waiver. It's, you can, option 1 is a EPP recommendation to, I want to say to waive the minimum content knowledge, but I don't want to use the word waive.
Yeah.
I know. So, Rebecca,
And
here's the
so-
thing, and I'm just
but-
looking at, and this is not me. I'm just giving you all the information. So just like, it's not even about my own opinion, because I'm thinking about, like, I want to help my girls that, and I don't have that many men. So, but there's some men out there too. So, but I have students that really have the heart and soul of the teacher, but then they cannot pass. So I understand the need for some kind of flexibility. However, how do we get EPP buy-in that we would want to recommend this, that they wouldn't have to take the content mastery exam that's what we need for our accreditation? It just doesn't, it's just, I don't think it's not going to be a good sell, right? I think that we really need to have them finish their program. I don't agree with asking for more content. I think they need to finish their program, graduate, and then move into, and like,
if they
guys,
finish their
this is
program,
like, this is all new, right? So maybe they move into instead of calling it a durational shortage certificate, maybe they move into a temporary certificate until they've demonstrated that they,
And
in the
actually,
district.
I mean, but
ARC
then that
does
takes
have
away
something
the,
similar.
what it sounds like, Catherine, is it takes away, and I'm hearing Anne's voice in my head right now. It's saying we as EPPs are, once they're done with our program, we are no longer responsible if they cannot pass their content knowledge exam. And like this, and like that, while like, we're like, let somebody else decide. Right now, SDE decides. And I'm like, well, I think that and I feel like Anne has said, wait a second, we know our students best. Like, we know how they're doing. And so I think we've got I think the complicated part is, when do we release like responsibility? And do we truly believe their minimum content knowledge is as an EPP, our responsibility?
And I think so 2 things. I think that is my like existing concern for waiver 1 is, if a student is really struggling the whole way and you really like the student and you want them to move forward, there's a lot of motivation to give a student waiver 1 because they're going to be a good teacher, right? And like, we want to help remove the barrier. But I'm worried that, like, if I'm thinking specifically for like a science program or something where it's very objective, very, very objective, like whether or not you know math or whether or not you know physics, that you might end up with a situation where you want to give them a waiver, right? Because they're going to have the heart of a teacher. They're really good, they're struggling, and you want to support them. But if they haven't been showing content knowledge, I worry that the EPP is the one that both prepares them and assesses, right? There's no second opinion. But that's just a thought. My other thought, though, was on having like a temporary certificate. ARC, the alternate route to certification, actually does a similar thing with their 90-day certificate, that upon completion of 90 days in your district, then you have your initial cert. So I like that idea because that might get out of the DSAP problem, right? If
But
you
now we're
had some,
talking about, we're going
I
down the
know, I
road
know.
of like the certifications and like we're literally just trying to determine minimum content knowledge.
Yeah.
Like just how do we check that box? It's a
Yeah.
box that we currently have to check. How do we do that and open up and open up opportunities?
Yeah.
Right, but if your point, if part two is they can work in the district and the district can collaborate with State Department of Education or whatever, this the EPP, and I don't agree. I mean, I know what Ann was saying. We know our students. However, when a student graduates, it is impossible to track them. I mean, it is impossible.
And we
We
wouldn't,
don't
it's
have.
not us tracking them. It's literally, it's a student coming back saying, like, I have two waiver options, my district or my EPP. I
But
would like
EP,
to go to the EP. I would like the waiver. I would like EPP. I would like to do whatever you have to so that I can be recommended without having to pass this test.
I don't know how an EPP would do that when we have an accreditation that says we need to demonstrate professional and content knowledge, right? So like how do we do that?
I mean, well, we're recommending already without like, right, we're saying we recommend without passing of the praxis too.
Well, I think that what you're saying is, so I just think that there's a different, that they would have to follow a different, right now it's either we certify them, we either agree or support that certification, their application, or we don't. Like that's it. It's either
Right.
and or. And I think that what you're saying is you want to check the box. Yeah, you know what? If we deem it, and maybe I'm getting to get what you're saying. If we deem it that maybe they're a strong candidate, but they're not a good test taker, but I think then that's becomes, I have to say, becomes arbitrary, and then there's a room for bias. Absolutely. I mean, there are people that you know are great teachers, and you're like, oh, they just can't pass that test. Well, am I making a decision on data now? Or am I making a decision on the fact that I know that they're really great and I see them in the classroom and I happen to like them, and I don't know, like then it's not data driven. So
Yeah,
I think that it does have to live, like I think that the certificate, I think that we say this is what they've done, and maybe we don't make a recommendation. Maybe we just give the state the information. State's collecting the information on the student anyway. That everything goes
Yeah.
to the state, right? So maybe that's where it long. Maybe we don't. Maybe the certification officer says just confirms this is all the information, and then there's a different funnel that goes to the state, and it can go into different, maybe the student files different paths, different forms. I don't know. I'm just thinking that I don't believe that the EPP is going to be able to pull that one off.
All right, everyone.
And what
It
happens
is
if the
about
student,
that time,
yeah,
though. We've got like 1 minute left, Catherine, so I'm gonna wrap this up.
okay.
So we discussed a lot of things. So we discussed apprenticeship, residency, internship, EPP approved waiver, district approved waiver. We talked about how DSAP does have its challenges, but perhaps in the future, obviously not right at this moment, there could be a way that gets like a temporary certificate, so that even though right now this teacher could work as the teacher of record for 10 months, if they got a score that was, close enough to the cut score, that they could work for 10 months and have the superintendent say that, okay, they've been evaluated in their classroom performance and that shows content knowledge. I have lots of notes. I don't have tons of edits that I anticipate making into this document because it was just a conversation with the three of us, and a lot of things were really good points, but kind of like tangential to the proposals, so it wouldn't get written into like a proposal or regulation. But thank you guys for waking up so early and having this great conversation. Is there anything either of you would like to add before we head out?
No,
We're going to bring this to the larger group.
I was not planning on bringing any particular proposal. I was planning on discussing, like, these were the new things that were discussed. But saying, we couldn't vote to move anything to the larger committee. However, in the big committee, if ideas have particular support, like, it doesn't have to go through committee. It's not like legislation and that a bill must be exited from this committee and then that committee.
I think we should just bring, this for a discussion with the larger. I just think to get more voices.
I think that will kind of come up naturally, right? So, like,
I don't know, the way we run with Robert's rules, I feel like nothing comes of that. We gotta like, we would like to discuss it. Like, here are the options that we've been discussing.
I know. Like, I got to tell you, I feel like we're not getting anywhere. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I really, I mean, I mean, we've been talking about the same thing for months. At the end of the day, yeah, we need more flexibility. We got the bridge, and if we don't get something to that education committee, they're just going to do whatever, and it may not work for all of us. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I recommend that we just like be intentional with the agenda and just, if we can, with the update, to say like open it up for an open discussion with the larger.
I'll
No
talk
proposals.
to Jen and see where she can put us on the agenda, if she wants to put it under items for discussion instead of like items for action.
Yeah.
That way we can, So I'll talk to her and see what she can do
Great.
about that.
Thank you all so much.
All right.
Are we going to do another ad hoc before the big meeting?
I would like to. I don't know if we have time to. This is a particularly horrible week for me, but I can try to find an hour. And I know Chloe said she has emails that she's going to follow up with.
Yeah, I can send a follow-up email to the whole ad hoc.
Are we allowed to have like conversations? Like, am I allowed to like brainstorm with Rebecca to try to figure this out?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, let's do that, Catherine.
One-to-one, yes, but not like
like as friends. We can meet as friends and
No,
talk
we
about
can meet. We can have conversations about this. There's multiple conversations happening about all of this good stuff.
I think that we can definitely, I think Rebecca and I need to, because maybe I need a little bit more information, and then maybe I can, and I think we can try to get to some, I think we need to do that, Rebecca.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna email you.
Perfect.
All right.
All right, great.
Have an
All right,
excellent day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.